Did you say hi? No.
This is to Nate.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, March 20th, 2019. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Carlin.
Here.
Eliason. Evans.
Here.
Garner.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Olmsted.
Here.
Heschel.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next, we will call forward three young ladies from ALPS School, Maya Walker, Jersey Reedinger, and Shua Thor, who are leading us in the pledge tonight.
She keeps smiling over here.
Ladies, welcome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are so glad that you joined us this evening as representatives of ALPS, which is located at Perry Tipler. And to thank you for coming and reminding us that the reason we're here is for students. So I have a certificate for each of you suitable for framing. Shua Thor, thank you so much for coming. Maya Walker, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. And Jersey Reedinger, pleasure to have you here tonight. So ladies, you're welcome to stay for our meeting, but if you have other things to do like homework or your favorite television show is on, we certainly understand. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next we have the board president report. I was making some notes in preparation for this meeting, and I was reflecting on what I call opening day. To me, the school district has two opening days. There's the day in August when all the staff report and they gather in the Alberta Kimball Auditorium. And when that happened last August, we talked about celebration. And the second opening day is when the students come. That's also a day to celebrate as well. But over the last 2 weeks, there have been so many opportunities to celebrate the successes of our students, and I just wanted to share a few of those with you tonight. This past Monday night was the annual Celebrate Education event, which was held at the Convention Center to recognize the innovation, creativity, and dedication that our teachers show on a regular basis to their students. And so I want to give a shout out to all the award winners who received awards from Mid-Morning Kiwanis, the Oshkosh Area School District Education Endowment Fund, and the Bell and Ed Rudoy Awards. It was a very inspiring evening, knowing that so many positive things were going to happen to celebrate in our classrooms. I want to also give a shout out to the Oshkosh North High School today through the Communities Program to honor a woman who was a longtime secretary at Oshkosh North, truly cared about children, was known for her kindness and her reaching out to students, reaching also into her own pocket to serve student needs. Ann Davies. North held a chili contest today, so for $1 you could sample all these wonderful types of chili. I think there were 20 plus. I didn't taste all of them, but there were. I did make most of them. It was a wonderful opportunity to get together and experience food, but raise some money to support our students, so another reason to celebrate. This past Sunday, at the Oshkosh Public Library, there was the Helen Farnsworth Mears Art Contest. I learned that this is an annual contest honoring a woman from Oshkosh who was beyond her time, a woman ahead of her time, in that she was into the world of sculpture when that was largely a man's world. And I know that she worked on a number of famous sculptures, including the sculptures that are in our state capitol. So anyway, this art contest brings together works of art from 7th and 8th graders throughout the city. And we had quite a number of our students whose artwork was recognized. And so I want to give a shout out to the organizers of that and to our students whose work was displayed. I believe it's there through the end of the month down in the children's section. So if you're looking for something to do, I'd encourage you to go to and see the 2D and 3D art produced by 7th and 8th graders. There have been several concerts which allow us opportunities to celebrate the work of our students and their teachers and the support of their parents. Recently, there was the 8th grade all-city band concert. That was something to behold, with representatives from all of the middle schools performing individually and then as a group. That was something to behold. There was also the all-city choral concert, which took place last night. Upwards of 200 students on the stage and in the pit area, very inspiring, and another reason to celebrate. There was also the recent all-city orchestra concert. It was literally wall-to-wall stringed instruments. And it was, again, something great to celebrate. I know that ALPS recently had a Culture Day. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that, but I know the students worked very hard on their materials promoting cultures of different states and different countries. The Oshkosh North Hall of Fame was an opportunity to celebrate the success of students in terms of honor roll, and also to recognize a graduate of roughly 20 years ago who has made a name for himself and for Oshkosh North High School through his efforts in promoting wellness and nutrition. There was also the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Day at the Capitol, which gave superintendents largely and school board members an opportunity to interact with their lawmakers. Mrs. Carlin, Dr. Cartwright, and I also had the opportunity to be part of that and had a chance to meet with State Representative Michael Schra, State Representative Gordon Hintz, and State Senator Dan Fine. And it was a great opportunity to tell them about the Blue Ribbon Commission and also the governor's budget and the impact that it would have on Oshkosh. So another reason to celebrate. I think I've gone through my list. Oh, no, there's one more. Art in the Garden. Art in the Garden is a program led by the Altrusa Club of Oshkosh, and they are sponsoring an art fair on March 30th to 31st. So those of us who are not leaving Oshkosh during the upcoming spring break would welcome the opportunity to go to the Art in the Garden, which is at the Hilton Garden Inn. I believe there's a fee to get in, however, but there's a wonderful display of high school art, and you will not be disappointed. The quality of artwork produced by our students under the supervision of their teachers, the support of parents and family is really outstanding. And so those are just a few of the things that have been going on and will go on over the next 2+ weeks, for which we can continue to celebrate the many positive things going on in our schools, the success of our students, the support of their teachers and their family and friends. So with that, I will turn this over to Superintendent Cartwright to share her good news report. I hope I haven't stolen any of your thunder.
No, ma'am.
And to have her share her calendar with us.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. So we're going to get started right away, but over at Jefferson Elementary School. Second graders at Jefferson Elementary School recently showed their appreciation for local businesses and welcomed some of their favorite businesses into the classroom. The activity was part of the students' recent opinion writing unit. Students selected their favorite local businesses and wrote letters of appreciation. In the letters, the students shared why the businesses are their favorite and invited them into their classroom for a Best Business in Oshkosh celebration. Kindergartners at Oakwood Elementary School donated over 100 cans of baked beans to Father Cars. The donation was a part of the students' celebration of the 100th day of school. Congratulations.
It's a lot of beans.
It is. Harry Sidney, 3-time Super Bowl champion, coach, and author, recently visited Merrill Middle School to speak with 8th graders on overcoming adversity to achieve greatness. The visit was a culminating experience for the students' literacy unit, in which they recently read The Freedom Writer's Diary. The book and Mr. Sidney shared a valuable message that resonated with students. You are in charge of your own destiny. Powerful message. Oshkosh Area School District students recently gathered for an evening of technology and learning during a Digi Girls workshop. The event provided middle and high school students with the opportunity to explore programming, coding, and computer science through the hands-on and engaging activities. Sponsored by Women in Technology for Girls, the workshop was made possible through support from Microsoft, Bemis, and Plexus. The Oshkosh Area School District recently hosted a nationally and renowned motivational speaker, Mike Vinny, who shared a message of empowering mental wellness and transforming stigmas associated with mental health. In 2016, our district partnered with a number of community organizations to establish the Rise Up program, a comprehensive mental health initiative that strives to support overall student wellness. This presentation supported the efforts of the Rise Up program and aimed to improve our understanding and awareness of mental health and the resources available within the Oshkosh community. Recently, the South Park Middle School Encompass class had the privilege of welcoming the Wisconsin Historical Fencing Society in for a demonstration. The team highlighted the necessity of self-control, both in their bodies and in their minds, as well as trust of their team members. The students really enjoyed seeing their teachers take part in the demonstration as well, and are looking forward to inviting the group back next school year. Oshkosh Early Learning, in partnership with the Oshkosh Public Library, recently hosted a family literacy night. All Oshkosh area 4K students and their families were invited to the Oshkosh Public Library to participate in stations featuring literacy activities centered around favorite characters and authors. Congratulations to Oshkosh West's senior swimmer Andrew Groth, who qualified for the WIAA State Boys Swimming and Diving Meet. Andrew participated in the 200 free and the 500 free events. This was the third time that Andrew qualified for the state meet. During the month of February, Shapiro STEM Academy Student Council held a coin drive to benefit those in need. The student and school community raised over $1,000 and presented a check to the Day by Day Warming Shelter. A representative from the shelter accepted the check and taught students about the services the shelter provides to Oshkosh community. Perry Tipler Middle School and ALPS students recently had a friendly homeroom competition to collect pull tabs. The school's goal was to collect 3 pounds to donate to the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Madison. But by working together, not only did they hit that 3 pounds, but they exceeded it by 30 pounds. So a total of 33 pounds of tabs. Way to go in making a difference in our community. Tipler and ALPS students.
For donuts.
The Oshkosh Area School District is proud to have 4 honorees amongst those to be recognized by the Herb Kohl Educational Foundation. 2 Oshkosh Area School District high school seniors are being recognized for their exceptional scholarship, leadership, citizenship, and school and community involvement. Megan Best, a senior at Oshkosh West High School, and Miranda Leggett, a senior at Oshkosh North High School, were recently selected as Herb Kohl Student Excellence Scholarship recipients. Additionally, Nydia Griffin, a senior at Oshkosh North High School, was nominated by her school for her demonstrated exceptional initiative in the classroom and strong promise for succeeding in college and beyond. Her nomination was selected, and Nydia was named a Herb Kohl Initiative Scholarship recipient. Lastly, Alexandria Griffith, an English teacher at Oshkosh West High School, has been named a 2019 Herb Kohl Educational Foundation Teacher Fellow. Congratulations to all of those individuals. Here we are continuing to spotlight just a few of our teachers and sharing their reflections on why they teach. The individuals on the screen remind us of how caring our teachers are. We are so grateful for these individuals and for all of our teachers and adults who support our children on a daily basis. Thank you.
I love those.
We are all committed to building community through education. As superintendent, I'm always committed to being present and engaged in our schools and throughout the Oshkosh community. On the screen, you'll see just a few examples of where I've been spending my time. I do want to highlight just for a moment, if I may, related to the day at the Capitol. I think it's important to publicly acknowledge what the conversations revolved around, specifically related to our governor's budget. There are some areas for which we did highlight and emphasize with our legislators that are tied to the Blue Ribbon Commission, and it was conversations for which the school board had previously had discussion about and stated that those were areas that we wanted to ensure that we brought to the table. So I wanted to bring that just to the public knowledge. One of the things within the governor's budget is where he states that he wants to provide a revenue limit adjustment of $200 per revenue limit member in the fiscal year for 2019-20. and $204 in fiscal year for 2021. And then at the beginning in the fiscal year 21-22, an index revenue limit adjustment to the change in the consumer price index. Additionally, increase revenue limit equity for low spending districts by increasing the low revenue ceiling to $9,700 in fiscal year 2019-20 and $10,000 in fiscal year 2020-21. Increasing the low revenue limit ceiling helps an estimated 125 districts that have been confined to lower revenue limit authority for several years. Oshkosh Area School District is one of those districts. Currently, our revenue limit is set at $9,400, so going up to potential $9,700, provided that the board would want to leverage to that maximum limit, could have a substantial impact in helping us just on an operational basis of how to work with our children. A second thing that we also, so we stated to our legislators that we were in support of that item within the governor's budget. In addition to that, he is also, Governor Evers is proposing an increase in special education aid by approximately $75 million in fiscal years 2019-20 and $531 million GPR in fiscal year 2020-21 to reimburse eligible special education costs at 30% and 60% in those fiscal years respectively. State funds available for reimbursement have remained unchanged since the fiscal year of 2008-2009. While eligible expenses have increased, resulting in a current reimbursement rate of only 25% for school districts. This is important also for us because of our current budget right now, and this would be for our general budget, so it's not a categorical budget, but within our current general budget, beyond the general services that are provided, 15% of our general budget is utilized in order to provide services for those students who have special needs. So that's important to notate because what that means is that if the governor, if this goes through, then there will be funds that are available that are specified for those students who have special needs, which will give us a little bit more leverage back into our general fund so that, again, we can provide support for those students who have not yet been identified or have some other needs that we are not able to address at this point in time. Students who are identified as those with special needs, we are federally required in order to provide services that are identified within their individualized education plan. So that's why this is one that would be of substance. The third one that we spoke about, and I will leave it at this point, is increasing the funding to address the need to access mental health services for school-age youth programs, to include reimbursement for expenditures for any school-based pupil services in schools. And they're saying for $7 million in each year to increase the number of school-based mental health collaboration grants provided, $2,580,000 in each year to expand training for school personnel in various mental health interventions, and then $150,000 in each year for data systems to store results of those youth risk behavior surveys. In addition, support for the Department of Public Instruction's administration of those programs by providing $72,000 in GPR in the fiscal year for 2019-20, $95,000 for fiscal 2021. And a one FTE position in each year. Bit larger picture, what we were discussing with our legislators is that regardless of the details on this, the school districts needs additional funding related to mental health. There did seem to be, just for the general knowledge, on both sides of the House, Republican and Democrat, a support for mental health as well as support for special education funding. So those were two items that we did see that there was on both sides of houses that there was general support for. And then the last point we talked about was just a little bit about the transparency related to the voucher system, so that people have a common understanding of what that means. And again, the message of where in Oshkosh Area School District, we are paying well over $1 million at this point in time into that voucher system. However, we have not seen a decrease in enrollment as far as that's concerned, so it really has the appearance that families who already previously paying for private education are now applying for the grant and getting funds for that, so in order to pay for that private education. So it's not that students are leaving the district and taking advantage of this voucher. It's just individuals who are already in the private school system taking advantage of the voucher. Yes, ma'am.
I know it's not typical that we have questions, but I wanted to be really clear. I heard on the radio that our Representative Schra said that we're going to come forward with referendum. And since I'm on the board, I was really confused. And since you said that you were able to talk to him at the Capitol, do you have any, was that ever mentioned or?
He did have questions related to our facility study and what did that mean and what were the implications related to that and what were some potential topic areas that the board was going to be talking about in the future.
Okay.
However, at no point in time was it discussed that we are going forward for a referendum, so I'll make
Okay.
that abundantly
Thank
clear.
you.
That is a school board decision.
Thank you.
The school board has not made that decision, and we are in midst of discussions related to the needs of our district and what are potential future actions that we may need to take in order to either remedy those needs or to address those needs as we go forward. So those are not things that are happening. I think there may have also been some confusion related to that because the districts on either side of us are currently going for referendum. So that would be
So
Fond du
we might have
Lac
been
as well as
talking
Neenah.
about
So I think there may have been some confusion related to that because, for
Let's
example, the
clear it up.
amount that was thrown out, from my understanding, I did not witness that or hear that conversation, but the amount that was stated on there actually is the amount for the Neenah referendum.
Aha.
Oh, was he talking about?
He was talking about
Nina?
Nina or
Well,
Fond du
Bob
Lac.
Burnell, and what I heard on the radio is he said, Oshkosh, hold on to your wallets.
Oh, jeez.
You know, Schra said the school board is bringing a referendum.
No, again, that is not, has
So
not
maybe
been.
I
not the
misheard it.
conversation.
That has not been discussed,
Oh.
and again.
Right, I know.
with
I just wanna
Representative-
clarify.
But I will be very clear, Representative Shaw, that was, actually, he was the one who brought the conversation forward to us, asking those questions and what that meant. And all we did at that point is I gave clarification as to our last workshop. I provided some of the information that we discussed. For example, by school, I told him when the schools were built. He had questions related to the high costs, where that comes from, so the 107 million, 109
Yes.
million.
Yeah.
That is on there. What did that actually mean? Because he was under the impression that that's what it was for building a new school, and that was not what that number represents. That number represents truly
Right.
just to get our facilities up to
Right.
par today
Yeah.
on existing old buildings.
Right.
So that's sidewalks, doors, windows, playgrounds,
Roofs, parking lots.
doesn't even address the educational need that we have of the population for which we serve right now.
Okay.
So again, I just want to make that abundantly
Good.
clear. No, that was not discussed.
Good.
As far as this is what we are doing. He asked, is it a potential? Of course, that's one of the things that the board will be looking at as potential. So we did go through of all the different potentials
Okay.
that the board would be looking at. But again, that was a discussion, it was not a decision.
Okay. Thank you for
You're
clarifying
welcome.
that.
Perhaps he needs some clarification on the issue.
Perhaps.
Perhaps, and we have also offered for him, he asked, and we did say we would most certainly love to have him come.
To our
And
schools.
come on for 2 days in Oshkosh Area School District, so we will be inviting him into one of our schools.
Good.
That would be awesome.
Probably during the month of May.
Make him read the kindergartners.
Well, I'm going to have more than likely, we're going to meet during the month of May.
Okay.
I'm going to be proposing that we meet at Merrill School,
Mhm.
and just but more than likely going up to the 4th floor where I can have a nice conference area and then review the information one-on-one with them.
Okay, wonderful.
Well, small group, I
Yep.
should say.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Cartwright.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other district administrator supplemental reports tonight?
Oh, I have education.
And then, moving on to other
Oh,
reports
not yet.
from committee
Okay,
chairs.
sorry.
Mrs.
I
Carly, you
always
are
do
so
this,
eager tonight.
always
I
do
love
this,
it. You're out of
yes.
the gate, out of the
Yeah.
box. Okay, Mrs. Carlin.
Okay. Nothing but great news coming from Education Committee. We met on Thursday, March 7th, to talk about two things: the arts programs, which was exciting, and mentoring programs. Julie Conrad spoke about the art courses that have been offered over the past 5 years, some which included senior art and global art. And we also talked about art credits and how they've been very consistent over the past 4 years with students who are passionate about visual arts taking one or more art courses. We also discussed the staffing and offerings that we have available. Staffing has remained stable between 2 and 2.3 FTEs at North and 4 FTEs at West. Time and course offerings are the barriers to taking more classes. You know, kids have a lot of choices and a lot on their plates. There are 4 art offerings at the middle school level. 6th grade students are required to take art because that grade level is still considered elementary, and 7th grade has an art option, and 8th grade has 2 art options. Special Opportunities for Artists in Residence, also known as SOAR, has been a great supporter of the arts in the school district, with over $250,000 being raised for the arts. The group promotes visual and performing arts by bringing in artists who provide students a hands-on experience. And at this time, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Herzog for a successful evening with SOAR last week. I heard it was a huge success. And thank you for all your work with that organization. And wow, $250,000. That's amazing.
It was a group
Thank
activity.
you.
It was-
Thank you.
And I didn't write a check for that amount either, just to clarify.
But you would if you could, probably.
Yes, I probably would.
Yeah. Summer school art offerings are very popular, and they include crafty kids for elementary students, art and engineering for middle school students, as well as the Great Art Doors. I love that. That's a great title. And the Gifted and Talented program offerings for students grade 3 through 12, 3 times a year, where they are immersed in visual arts experience with a resident artist. So all good news about our arts programs. And Matt came and introduced Mentor 2.0. He introduced Lindsay Fenlon, who's the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters for the Fox Valley, and this is really exciting. The Oshkosh Area School District is partnering with Big Brothers Big Sisters for a Mentor 2.0 program, which will be starting at the beginning of 2019 and the 2020 school year. Oshkosh North students who are part of Project Phoenix will be some of the students that will be using this program initially. And Lindsay talked about the program's history being based out of New York, and it was created when the traditional model of mentoring was not working, which is about 20 years ago. And students work through this program through high school and the year beyond. It supports both hard and soft skills, and they're going to be using a lot of technology to communicate. And it's a really exciting program. If you were at that meeting, you could feel her enthusiasm about bringing this to Oshkosh, and it's going to be fantastic. And the goal is to have 50 students each year, so that the end of 4 years, there'll be about 200 students in the program. So they have to build it up. It's brand new, so they're going to build it up
What's it called
slowly.
again?
It's called Big Brothers Big Sisters for the
Oh,
Fox
yeah.
Valley. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
But what is it, the mentor?
Mentor 2.0.
Mentor 2.0.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yep. So the program is usually targeted for larger communities with upwards of 75% of students receiving free and reduced lunch. They recognize while this district does not meet that requirement, there is still tremendous value, and representatives from Big Brothers Big Sisters will be spending 2 days in Chicago to see what they do and look at their program, and then visit Milwaukee schools to see how the program works in action. The upcoming timeline will include identifying who will be the coordinator for the program in March, followed by training through mid-April. Recruiting of mentors will begin in May. Big Brothers Big Sister also plans to talk to the Community Foundation about additional funding. And during our April Education Committee meeting, we will have a proposal update from the Boys and Girls Club regarding this program as well. So it's exciting. It's very exciting stuff. And future meeting agenda dates, we will be meeting again on April 3rd. And future agenda items include Boys and Girls Club partnerships an elementary math update, and an update on Sunday as well. So, thank you.
Sunday being the reading program.
Yes, correct.
Very
Mhm.
good. Thank you, Mrs. Carla. And I believe Mrs. Olmstead is ready with a report.
I do. Facilities and Finance Committee met on March 14th, and we had a budget variance report with Mrs. Schnorr, and it was a written report, and there was no questions. And then Ms. Schendel brought forward our 4K programming and support that they need for that programming. She started with a little bit background on the 4K program, that it's the third largest program in our district. It serves over 700 students in our district with 16 locations throughout the city. The program began back in 06-07 with a community collaborative approach model. Currently, there are 3 models. So the model 1 is a school building, and it's school teachers. We hire the teachers. Then there's another model, model 2, is it's a community location, but it's school district employees there. And then model 3 is the community location, and the community hires that. So if it was at a daycare, then the daycare hires those 4K teachers. Their current support includes 1 principal, which is Ms. Schendel, 1 clerical, 2.5 IST, a 0.5 nurse, and a 0.3 psychologist. There is no FTE for a social worker, counselor, behavioral interventionist, media specialist, or technology integration coach. And so all of those aspects are pushed back into those few people that run this program. Data trends support lower teacher turnover rate when 4K teachers are hired by the Oshkosh Area School District. Turnover is impacting money, time, and mostly the students. So what this means is there's a much higher turnover rate when there's teachers there that are not Oshkosh Area School District employees. When it's the daycares hired, the turnover rate is much higher. So the request came forward is converting a 2.5 4K teaching positions for Davis. So Davis Daycare came to the school district and asked, they wanted to go from a model 3, which is community and their own employees, to a model 2, which is their site with our teachers. They came and asked for this with us. It would impact our district's budget next year. We did look at some other money, which we'll show down at the end on how that impact is. There's also a current need of a minimum of a 1 FTE for a social worker for this program. There's also concern with preschool attendance and absenteeism research. In 2018-19, the range of absences span up to 67 days absent in some of these situations, some of these areas. And this was as of like March 8th of this year. The request was to hire a social worker to begin in 2019-20 school year. It was also noted that there were 605 significant behavioral incidences as of March 8th. So those are any of our incidences that they've been trained on, and the staff, and we work with a lot of those people that are in those positions from daycares, and they have to report on all the incidences. This is an additional rationale for adding a social worker support in addition to increasing a 1.5 FTE in IST support to assist with social and emotional needs of students. It was noted that fewer students are meeting the literacy benchmarks as they enter 4K. So some of the financial impacts, the committee had asked and recommended we identify the cost differences, because the slides that we're showing were just telling the costs. They weren't showing the difference of the money that we give them, because there was different money that on each, what we send to these programs on each one. So we had asked that it showed the difference in the money. So shifting a Model 2 to Davis is $160,000, but the cost difference is only $32,000 because of what we already give them. So I did ask that when it comes to the board that we show those differences. So I had, and then adding the 1 social worker is $65,000 to $75,000, including benefits. And then increasing the IST support from 2.5 to 4 would be announced. They hadn't looked at those numbers quite yet. So we recommended identifying the difference in the cost from the Model 2 to the Model 3, which is only $32,000. And then also be helpful to put the dollar amount on the retention and the turnover. What does it cost per teacher to bring them on? Because then we had to train them. And they had it in all the hours, and we asked that the hours get changed to actually dollars. So that's to impact our budget. Also noting that the cost of the social worker is $65 to $75, but however, 50% of that is covered through categorical aid, and the district be reimbursed that money. The second year that it's there. So the committee had supported the request, and we recommended that they bring the Davis model to the school, to the board immediately, because those contracts are coming up. So they are coming to us on two separate things for this. We had asked for that, because the second piece was a really big piece that I thought that we all should see. So they're bringing up just the Davis on our April 2nd, the second board meeting in April. It's going to be a staff report, and they're going to come up and tell us a little bit to move from the Model 3 to the Model 2. And then at a later date, Ms. Shinda will be coming forward to show all the numbers on adding the social worker and the IST departments. She'll be coming later. Go ahead.
If I may,
Yeah.
and just a clarification,
Yeah.
we'll be coming forward to looking for 2 social workers. And
For
I do
that.
apologize
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
For the typo.
After looking, okay,
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
the 2, okay. Great.
My only recommendation moving forward is
Yeah.
that we have the big picture on staffing and not piecemeal it, as has
Right.
been the case for too many years.
So what I think was for what I think is happening is we're getting these needs, and I think with having Dr. Cartwright on board, she's seeing these individual
Right.
needs that are popping up, and I don't know
Right.
that we can wait with some of these kind of things. but
I understand that, but for too long, we've had things brought in piecemeal. We don't have the big picture, we don't know how much money we have available, and then committing dollars that we don't know that we have
Right.
is problematic. So
Okay.
let's move on, because we're not really noticed to
Okay.
discuss that.
If
Dr.
I-
Cartwright?
Just for clarification, if I may, the only reason this one component is coming forward is because the contracts having to be signed in May.
Yes.
And it's only going to be for the cost of the transitioning from a Model 3 to a Model 2, so that we can meet the deadlines that are required under contract. Everything else will be proposed and submitted to you in a much larger plan.
Yes.
As I had previously committed that we would be looking at this coming in with those larger plans in place
Good.
and not having a piecemeal approach.
Good.
Yes, yeah. And that's what I apologize. I didn't explain that well enough, that they're coming to us because of the contracts, but the other part is coming later with the whole picture. They
Good.
were just informing us.
Good. All right, thank you.
Sure. And then, I'm not
Excuse
finished.
me.
Yep. And then we had, Mrs. Schnorr gave us an update on the OEA post-employment changes. In 2014, there was a change to the post-employment benefit with staff hired prior to 2011, grandfathered in under the prior benefit. This proposal included moving everyone to $1,000 with vesting occurring after 5 years to make the record keeping easier and to manage. Right now, I think I think we have 3 different price points. This would be an increased cost of $194,750. More than 1/2 of our employees are grandfathered. The new staff have a 5-year vesting schedule. Grandfathered staff are required to retire from the district to get the benefit. Sue will provide more information at the next meeting, such as the statistics on how many people are grandfathered and how many are on the current plan, as well as how many are forfeiting the benefits. We are losing a lot of people that are leaving before retirement and then forfeiting the benefit. So we asked that she bring that back in April with more of those detailed numbers. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I want to interrupt again.
No, that's okay.
Are there any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, is there anyone who wished to address the board this evening on a non-agenda related public forum? Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the board on an agenda-related public, as part of a public forum? Seeing none, we will move on to the first of 2 workshops. Ordinarily, we don't have workshops at our second meeting of the month, which this is. However, we have 2 topics tonight that have a time frame in which we must complete them for different reasons. And so we do have 2 workshops on what is the second meeting in the month. So Dr. Gunlock and company are here to share with us information on updating our district's website. So Dr. Gunlock, this table is yours.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm, for those who don't know, Dave Gunlock. I'm the Deputy Superintendent, and the reason I did that is because I want you guys to introduce yourselves as well, so anybody watching on camera. So I know they know me.
Katie Neiman, Communications Director.
I'm a first-timer here, so I'm Matt Schmidt. I am a project manager with the IT department.
So we wanted to present some information about the website vendor selection. We went through a pretty intensive process over the past several months to come up with a recommendation. We think we have a really good recommendation for you this evening. But wanted to start a little bit about some of the history of how the website was implemented in Oshkosh, sort of 1.0 to 3.0, which is where we're at today. The first system was in place when we got here in 2010. It kind of went to about 2012. It was very low cost. It was about $400 a year. What didn't cost us much at all. Had a lot of outdated information on it. I remember Stan one time indicating that when he was researching the district, he found 3 different superintendents on the site. We didn't have 3, but the 3 past ones were on there. The search results were kind of sketchy. It was decade-old technology. It was actually stored in a server somewhere in Green Bay. We're not quite sure exactly where it was, but we knew we could get into it a little bit. It was very difficult to add and remove content. It was it was sort of the original content management system. It was prototyped by the Oshkosh Area School District, which was eventually turned into a product called CMS for Schools. So it was sort of the original product for that. And there was, of course, no mobile design, because when it was put in place, there were no mobile phones that were smartphones. In about 2012, we came up with the idea, we charged a website committee to take a look at this. And we looked at all the different systems out there, and they came up with the idea of, why don't we just use Google Sites? At that time, Google was taking off. We were using it for other things. And we actually purchased a service from a company out in California to do the design to make it look less like Google Sites. And as you can see, it looked really good. It didn't look like Google Sites at all. Had some enhanced graphics. It had a nice calendar tie-in, but it had limited search across the site. Every page was a different site, so there's no way if you searched you could hit all of those places. Limited mobile design didn't really work that well. The performance began to slow over time because Google kept making changes to their back end, and we didn't make changes to the front end without having to recontract with this company. So we realized as part of strategic plan 2, we had to get something stable because it was getting slow. The front page wasn't even loading. We had to do something. So we went to we worked with a local firm to move to sort of the 3rd version, which was just stock Google Sites. And as such, it really limited us on a couple of fronts. It was no cost. It was much faster. That was good. We did have some multilingual supports, but those were things that our Oshkosh staff built into the site. We did add an Our School calendar component to get it going just recently, but the search was still not functioning the way we wanted it, and the mobile design wasn't working really well. So that kind of brought us to today. So these were the constant needs that we were seeing. We weren't getting consistent content necessarily by staff. That's something we can work on internally. The responsive design for mobile use. You're going to hear me use the term responsive design. The websites are, some districts have gone to, we have a website for a regular computer and we have a mobile app. We've evolved past that to where the website should reconfigure itself, whether it's being used by your Chromebook, by your smartphone, by your iPad, or by your home computer. And the product that we are recommending was the best one for that. So it will look just as awesome on a mobile phone as it will on a full-blown computer. So that was something we were really keyed in at, because we're realizing from some of the data we're picking is that people are using this way more often than anything else to get at websites. I mean, that's kind of how we're moving. And that was one of the main reasons. An enhanced push technology to get information out to people instead of having them require them to come to it. The other one is better multilingual support, and that really plays into our constant discussion on equity. We need to have better multi-language support and better responsive design so that no matter who is accessing the site on whatever device they're using, minus a flip phone, that it would actually show up properly. We'd like to see some graphical enhancements and content management capabilities. In other words, we would like the ability to be able to sunset content. That's the other issue that we have, is people put some good stuff up, but then they don't go back to clean it out and take it away. So the content starts to build, and what that does, that messes with your search results, because there's more and more stuff sitting in there that you could erroneously pick on a search. So those were some of the core needs. But more importantly, it kind of went along with our communication plan, and I'll turn it over to Katie to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So as you may remember, a couple months back, I presented to you and you approved a communication plan for the next 2 years. Within that, listed in it was really developing a communication infrastructure for the district. And I've listed on the screen here sort of the different tactics that fall into that. The key component was making sure that we're regularly enhancing our website platform, which we obviously do on a regular basis, but now it's taking it to that next step and identifying, are we doing all that we can to meet the needs of our families and of our communities, as well as remain competitive with the neighboring districts as far as telling our own story. So that's kind of what goes into driving the communication alignment, to make sure, again, we're remaining top of mind in our communication initiatives and keeping that on the forefront to one of our most visible vehicles.
So yeah, to take you through a little bit, take you through the RFP process just a little bit. One of the first things that we did is we developed a representative website committee, and we wanted a group of people that came from all different areas. So we had a parent of a student from the district, a board member, clerical staff who are going to be using the website quite a bit to be able to update the content. We wanted to develop a group that was ready to see the demonstrations of all the vendors that came in to demo their product. Because again, we wanted all that input from all these different areas. So that committee was very key in terms of getting us to our next step with the website survey.
The website survey we sent out, I was actually pleasantly surprised that we had 851 responses. That's more than we got for our strategic plan. So a lot of people gave us a great amount of information. And what we ended up finding out from that survey was there were key pieces of our website they really liked. The core overview of the structure, sort of the sitemap, which if you go to any district website, we all tend to use the same sitemap. You know, it's broken down by school. It's broken down like a section for parents, a section for students, a section for community members. Those are real consistent no matter which website you go to. So our parents really like that. And what they were looking for is the components that we saw on the previous slide.
So some of the core criteria that we put in the RFP was put in there so the vendors that submitted bids knew what they were being graded against. And these are the 5 things that we chose to put in there. Base price and annual recurring costs. You know, in a situation like this, you're going to have people that might be very, very cheap to start up, but very expensive long-term in terms of licensing fees or upgrade fees over years. And you'll have the reverse. You'll have someone who is very cheap, but then had high expenses yearly. We wanted them to know that training and professional development was very important to us. We want to make sure that they're going to come in and train us on their products so we know how to use it and we can be successful. Wanted to make sure it was easy to use because it's going to be in the hands of secretaries to update a lot of the content, and the way they do it now is they basically go to Google Doc, change the information in the document, and it just magically appears on the website. It's very, very simple to do. This is going to move their cheese a little bit. It's going to give us a lot more usability, and it's going to be better for us. But it's going to move their cheese a little bit, so we want to make sure that it's going to be as easy as possible. So we want to pick a vendor that's going to be very easy to use their product. Then as far as number 4, ease of content transfer, we're going to depend on, and we're going to have to sit alongside of them, but we're going to depend on the website vendor to help us lift that content that applies to the new website. And we want that process to be very easy and not very complex. And then, of course, number 5, post-implementation support services. We want to make sure we have a vendor that is going to help us get this all set up, help us get us rocking and rolling, and not just shut the door and say, see you later. We want them to be with us, in years to come to help us over any kind of bumps that we come up against. So that brings us to the functional requirements. As Dave said, out of that 851 responses, we were able to develop these high-level requirements. There is meat underneath each one of these, but I wanted to point out a few that were most important. As Dave talked, number 3.5, this isn't in any particular order, but Number 3.5, we got built for mobile platforms. So again, on your phone, we want to be able to have it scale and have it look nice and neat on your phone, the menu system, the navigation, so it's usable on the phone. In fact, any kind of screen that you use, we want it to be usable. And then under 3.3, there was the content management. You heard Dave talk about search functionality. In our first 1.0 version of the website, search, let's just face it, wasn't very good. It didn't bring information to the surface. We went through an iteration to try to fix that, and it worked, and we got better at it and improved that service, but we think it can become even more beneficial as far as search goes. And then, of course, the analytical reporting. We want to know where people are going. What pages are you seeing most? So we can make sure those pages are professional. The whole site obviously is professional, but we want to lock into some of those pages. And then, of course, the staff directory, ADA accessibility. So anyone who comes and looks at our website, whether they may be unfortunately hearing impaired or vision impaired, can use our site.
So that a big part of that is because we're finding more and more people have to use a screen reader. So there's certain things you have to do when you post content to make sure that it works on a screen reader. And then those are usually meta tags that go along with a picture. So if I post a picture of something going on in the school, we have to put some sort of captioning information so if somebody was visually impaired, they could do that. A lot of the things that Matt referenced that we made changes to in our current iteration of our website, that will apply to this. A lot of the searches were missed if you didn't put the right terminology into the content. And that's something that we're working with people who are putting content into the website on, of how do you make sure you don't take for granted the common search terms so that it will queue up the moment somebody searches for that content.
So another set of requirements we had was the design requirements. We want our website all the way throughout it to be professional. Obviously, we all probably know that if people come to our community and they move to this area with children and they look at your school, the first thing you're going to look at is your website. We want that to be professional, so we want to engage them right away if we can. So the photo gallery function, we want that to be neat, professional looking. Homepage scroll link with news pages and calendar events on the homepage, so you can easily gather news and information and calendar events. Again, the responsive design, as David talked about before, anyone who looks at our site on any particular device, it's going to scale and it's going to look nice. The menu system is going to be nice, neat, and clean, and easy to read. We wanted the ability to have some custom design options in case you want to customize things a little bit more towards Oshkosh. And of course, Oshkosh branding options, again, because if we can brand this well enough, when people land on our site, we're hopeful that they will pick us as a destination.
We also wanted the ability for schools to custom design a little bit. They'll all look very, very similar, but they'll have their own logos, their own colors, et cetera. So you'll know you're in a school's website as opposed to not being able to figure that out.
So we had a lot of interest, which was great. We had these 10 vendors who submitted RFPs, and the way that process ran is we basically said, okay, let's look at all the RFPs, and on paper, let's see what companies here would fit us best based on our requirements, our criteria, and all that type of stuff. So you'll see the ones that are bolded in black, CMS for Schools, Edleo, Final Site, School Messenger, are the companies we brought in to do a second phase and demo their product, and that's where that website committee came in. They were able to sit in and actually visit and see the product in person, which is very beneficial to have that group there.
Right. And how we got down to these products, what we did is we looked at all their RFP results and we began to go through their example sites. That was one of the nice things, is each one had a set of example sites, and we did reference checks for the finalists that we looked at as well. So here were the actual costs, and you'll see there that final site is highlighted in green, and it starts out at year one cost of about $28,300. The annual fees, and those are accrued costs, so we just kept stacking them on top of each other. If you look at the final site option, it comes into under $20,000 a year. As I did the retail look on a lot of these sites, you'd go check what their website said they were going to cost. It was probably closer to $50,000 a year. So this is the value of going to an RFP, is you make it a very competitive process and you get a much better price. This graph right here shows all of them plotted out over time, and you can see some start more expensive, some start less. The blue arrows is where final site comes in. So you can see it's in the hunt down at the bottom with one of the lower cost options, and it's kind of, I'd say it's in the bottom third in terms of costs. Now, some of the other ones were taken out because, They required people to build us something from scratch. We wanted something that had been pre-designed and has a track record of having school content in it. We were not opposed to looking at those sites, but a lot of times they had more of a corporate feel to them, and education is just a little bit different, and we wanted to make sure we were able to take care of that. These were the final two. We really came down to looking at School Messenger and Final Site. It was really a tough decision in the end, and what it really was based upon was not necessarily cost. We never look at cost with the committee until the very end, because we really want somebody to pick what is the best option, and as it turned out, of the two, we did pick the less expensive, but Final Site really won the day based upon the core criteria and the functional requirements. They were able to hit each one so much. And that mobile design piece, the coolest thing that we saw was you could actually, on the fly, be working on the web page, decide what device you want to see it in. So if I said, I'm using an iPhone 10 Max, so it's a little bigger than your normal iPhone, it would reconfigure the page right there, and then the end user could actually design what they're doing. They could actually edit it right in that window. So if you really wanted to be sure that it was going to be mobile, you could actually design your page right there, and that was something the other vendors just simply did not have. So that gets us to our final site recommendation. Once again, it was a fully developed content management system for schools. There's a lot of school districts that we talked to that had used it. It was built for mobile devices. I had already mentioned that. It has a really robust search and accessibility features, and that includes you can just pick the language you want, and it'll reconfigure the site on the fly. Ease of use was big on this one. It seemed to be one of the more easy ones to use, and you really do have to do a deep demo in order to get at that, because all of these tools have a great deal of complexity to them, which you would imagine. But after you see them demonstrated and use them for a little bit, you start to realize there's an ease of use component as you learn the interface. So we spent some time with those. And then it really came down also to positive reference checks and reference sites. And then the last factor we looked at, because we didn't bring it up until the very end, is we kicked up costs, and then we saw where we were with that. So
I guess maybe one of the most exciting slides is, when are we going to do this?
this is the project manager's exciting slide.
That's right.
Gantt chart. He gets excited for Gantt charts.
But when is this all happening, So I called Final Site, and obviously it said, okay, this has to be approved yet, but can you put together some kind of rough timeline as far as how long this would take, and what phases would we have to go through to get this all implemented? This is what we came up with. Again, this is very, very rough timelines, because we won't really talk to one of their project managers until after this hopefully gets approved. So here's the layout right now. Project kickoff, we're going to hit the ground running pretty much after spring break if this is approved, to start having the initial discussions to kick the project off. Then you jump into planning and discovery phase, so we'll start planning out what the website will be, what it's going to look like, discover things that we want to do, and then we'll jump into the design phase. Final Site has a number of different types of pre-canned templates and themes, they call them, that you can use and pick from. So we'll look through all those themes and pick what we want the layout to look like that's best for us. Once we have that all set, then they're actually going to go into production and quality assurance. So they'll actually produce a website and they'll give it to us. We'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure it's all set for us. They said on average that actually will go through maybe 3 to possibly 4 iterations before you really get it right. So that'll take a little time. Once we have that set, we can jump into transferring content that makes sense to bring over on our current site, not the 3 superintendents that we might have out there, but the content that
we don't have those out there now.
No, exactly. But to bring the relative information into the new site. And then the data import integration phase is bringing in basically all of our accounts that are going to be using the website, and we're going to set this up. So we're either going to be using our Google account, an account that's tied into Active Directory or Infinite Campus possibly, but it's going to be the same exact username and password that they use to sign into everything else to make it easy. The last thing we want to do is give them another username and password to try to manage. So it's going to be incorporated into all of that. Then we'll jump into a training phase where they will train the trainer and or sit and train our staff. We're expecting them probably to do both. And then towards the end of October would be a final check and website cutover. Now you may be looking at that saying end of October. That was a request by the secretaries. The last thing that they wanted was to be trained in like August or September at the start of the school year. That's something new. So they were requesting that we push this
Right.
off until October, and if we can do that, we will. I think we can, but that would be the goal.
We could go faster than this if we wanted to, but
Right.
that was the one, we were originally slating for a September 1 kickoff. And we listened to the secretaries who said, no, don't do that. And we thought, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, everybody, part of this is we're going to have an opportunity here to roll something out exciting. And when are people going to be paying attention the most? There's so many things going on at the start of school that they're probably not going to pay attention. We'll be able to do some better PR building up to this if we take it into October. There's also some heavy legwork that has to go back here to improve the content that we want to put on the site. And the big one that worries me the most, but also gets me the most excited that we'll actually finally get this piece fixed, is district forms. We have a lot of district forms that date back to way, way, way long ago, and we're still using them. And you'd be surprised of the number of forms I have that were probably signed originally by Dr. Herzog at some point, because it refers to positions that were different at that time, and people just have the old forms somewhere saved on their computer. So figuring out where we're going to place these forms, do we include them in the board docs system? Because really, remember, we have board policy tied to board administrative guideline tied to forms. I have a feeling forms are probably going to live in this website because we want them to key in on the search so badly. And we did have that as one of our requirements. Could you, as a website, go search board docs for us? Because board docs has an awesome search. Could it pass through and get there? And nobody could commit to that. So most likely, and this is not a big deal, we probably will want to clean up our forms, modernize our forms and update our forms, flush out the ones that we don't use anymore, and then post those on the content management side of this site. So that'll be some of the work that's going on in the background while we're doing all this. And that's not going to be easy work, because there's a lot of forms for a lot of our departmental teams that probably need to be, it's like cleaning out your closet. It's never fun to do, but it's always good once it's done. So.
Policies, 2 years in advance.
Yeah, I got a tax form with Mike Dalton on the letterhead yet.
Yes, exactly. So those are some of the things that we want to make sure we clean up. And then the nice thing is once they're in this system, they'll be a one-stop shop. So unless somebody prints it off and keeps a printed copy, they'll get the right one. So at this point, we would open it up for any questions that you might have concerning the project.
Who has questions or comments? Mr. Peschel?
Yeah, so I've spent a little time going off to their websites that they've designed and stuff like that. And a couple of things that I really like, partially as a parent, is that I don't want to go deep into a website to find things that should be easy to find. And I think that's something that a lot of our parents tell us and communicate to us through in the past, and some of them in very frustrated manners. And so, and I think you have the ability now to be able to see where our parents go the most.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes, we do.
So the idea, the foresight is this planning of this next website is making it really easy for parents to go where they need to go. For example, for me to find the lunch menu, I have to go into, I think, the business page, then I have to go to the food administration, and then I have to go, 2 or 3 clicks, 4 clicks in, I finally get what I need. And everything. And then I'm smart, I finally save it to my drive so I don't have to go back and look for it later again.
Right.
But I think that's the type of stuff, that we really want to make it easy. We're not just talking the calendars, but we're talking those other documents, those other exterior sites that our families use as well. And that's one thing that I noticed a lot on Final Site, is that they have a lot of that stuff that the families use on a daily basis right on the home page.
Yep.
And that's something that I really want to encourage for ease of use for our families, is to take that stuff that we really use day in and day out and put it where it's really easy to find.
All the sites, or at least the finalists, had analytics that we could also use. So even though we build it today and we have it keyed up and running really, really well, we'll be able to pull analytics to see where are people going, where are they leaving, and we can design the site on the fly too to take advantage of some of that. This is a retail, I mean, this is what we would have wanted to do had we originally allocated the budget resources to do it. And honestly, that a lot of the functionality that Final Sight has and School Messenger has did not exist 2-3 years ago.
Right.
You know, that was the other thing. When we look back in 2012, the options that were out there weren't really good, and that's why that committee at the time presented to me the idea of going Google Sites. And my first take was, are you sure? This really isn't, you know, that's pretty out of the box. So the nice thing is the idea of responsive design has now become mainstream. So that'll help us a lot.
Are there other questions or comments?
I'm excited. I honestly, I don't know if I should admit this, but I don't think I have ever went on my computer for Infant Campus or even any of it. I don't ever just sit down on my computer at home,
Use my
ever,
phone.
and check. See, I use my phone for
Just use your phone,
all of
right.
it. The only thing I never used my phone for was our website because you have to do this to try to read, to try to read it. So I am so excited to have. I really am. It'll make so many parents' life so much easier.
Our parents and our board members have had infinite patience waiting for us to get this done. So it's going to be good to have it completed. I think people are going to be pretty excited.
So the other thing is calendars. And so what you guys have done in the last 6 months in regards to calendars, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage that there's either, something that's seamless so that we keep something similar to that, or if there's something that's 100 times better than that we, go to that with the understanding that, that's the best absolute way to go, and it's not going to cause any havoc to the users of using that. So, because that was one of our major concerns that was coming back to us, was the use of calendar.
Yep.
And you heard that from us. I'm not trying to hit that all home again, but I think that's the other area that I think we really look for there to be some type of seamless transition of
Google
use.
search.
Does that make
Search
sense?
is a big one.
That was probably one of the more difficult projects because we had to tie into the WIAA system, and there was a lot of
The
stuff
FDA.
that wasn't done the way we would do it just for building calendars. And the two people to my right were the ones who ended up with all the difficult challenges and having to work through it with our school, which is the vendor, and it wasn't easy. I mean, they made it look easy, but it wasn't easy. There was a lot of work that both Katie did and Matt did to constantly work through a lot of those problems. So that was a big part of, yeah, well, it was really, well, it wasn't me, so it was, but that was one of the things too, is Final Sight will work with our existing calendar system. It also has its own, but like you said, only if it was 100 times better would we do any changes right now.
Yeah.
So it's working, we're just gonna keep going with what we got. So,
Anyone else?
Just out of curiosity, which one of us was on the committee?
Steph
You
was.
were?
I was, and unfortunately, I was unable to see the final vendor presentations, and Dr. Gunlock offered to move them. It was the week that I was in France, and
Right.
he offered to move the meetings to adjust my schedule, and I told him I trusted the committee
Appreciate
going
that.
forward. And Ulia Salomon represented the PTO, and I spoke to her about some of the meetings, and I trust the process moving forward. So, but also moving forward, I will be more involved with the
Yep.
content
Yep.
development.
And the
whatnot.
design and all that?
Right,
Okay.
yeah,
Good.
so.
We got some design picking to do, so that'll be good. We also, if you're really excited and want to see the 4 demos, they are out on YouTube, and we use YouTube Live for all 4 of them, and they're pretty exciting. It's about an hour each, hour and a half each.
So I actually watched those.
Did you really?
did.
I was really kidding.
I was one of the people that did it, and I mean, I'm not a technological guy in any way, but this was such an important issue that came to us over the last 2 years that I was really interested in seeing how they presented, what they were presenting, and stuff like that. And so, I enjoy the fact that we were able to watch them and to be able to see them, and I'm really happy that you shared that with us.
Yeah, they did a nice job. Everybody did, and it was not an easy choice.
It's interesting because it's, what I found interesting is that it's still, even watching those, there's this interesting transition of the technology from the presenting to what's being on the screen and how we're watching it. And I just found that, even working through those little technical glitches that some of them had and everything was really interesting how I could watch that in my living room. So
And that was live. We actually, it was about 5 minutes delayed in case people wanted to watch it live, so that was pretty easy.
I want to congratulate you and thank you all, the rest of the committee, for the work. I see this as a much more, well, it could be that I'm not aware of the previous approaches to what was done in terms of the iteration. There was, I know, a change in the website between 2010 and 12, which was much needed. But one of the things that went away in that time frame was the search function, where you could go to the homepage and you could get a calendar and you could get virtually anything. That disappeared between 2010 and 12. So, Dr. Gunlock, when you say some of us have been patient, I would say some of us have been waiting 7 years. Until last fall, when Mrs. Neiman addressed some of those calendar issues and attempted within the current system to update that. And so I do appreciate those efforts. But I'm impressed with the thoroughness of this process and the fact that so many varied people, stakeholders, were brought to bear. And that you had such a response from the community.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Because as I think about this, as I was listening to you, there are at least 3 groups, there are probably more than that, but they're the internal stakeholders, the staff members who use this on a regular basis. There are the parents, people with children in schools. There are those of us who don't have children in schools. And then there's at least a 4th group, and those would be people who are maybe looking to relocate to this area, and they're trying to find information on our website. So you have at least 4, some of you can probably think of more, but those are at least 4 distinct groups that are looking for ease of use. To me, as someone without children, I like the calendar function, and I like an easy search function. The university recently redid the website for the College of Education and Human Services. It was unveiled about, I think about a month ago. So just after the start of the 2nd semester. There was no training involved, but transitioning from the old system to the new was very easy. You can get to places with minimal numbers of clicks. And so I don't see an issue necessarily with the internal or external stakeholders with a changeover in an October timeframe once the dust has settled with the initiation of the new school year. So I commend you for the thoroughness of the process and look forward to the implementation of something bigger and better than what we've had for 7 years.
That'd be nice.
So thank you all.
All right, thank you.
All right. Moving on, we have workshop item number 2, which we have on the board agenda this evening because our board policies require that we do an annual evaluation in the month of March. And we were all supplied with a document from School Perceptions that we probably filled out in a September-October timeframe. And since we are now about 7 months later, maybe we would have responded differently to these today than back then. But I think this does provide us with a rich source of data, which is one of the criteria we're looking at, use of data. And we were given the opportunity, by having these sent out last week in the board packet, to take a look at what are our takeaways, what are the opportunities we have for growth and development, what are our strengths as revealed by the survey, and finally, what are our next steps? Where do we want to go from here? So that's a lot of questions that I've thrown out, but I trust this board can handle that, so we can start with wherever someone would like to begin.
You just want to start with your first question?
Start with the first question. Well, that's an idea. All right. Okay, Mrs. Olmsted, let's go with it. And the first question, since I don't have those in front of me, is?
It was the top 3.
Oh, the top 3 that you wanted to discuss.
Top 3 strengths.
Top 3 strengths. Okay. One limitation I found to this process as I was going through this is the pages are numbered within an area, but they're not numbered overall.
Yeah.
And
Oh, right.
on a given page, nothing is numbered. So it
Right.
makes it a little more challenging, I think. But again, I trust the wisdom of this board in dealing with those factors. So
I have more confidence in that.
I do. I trust this board. All right. So what are the top three that impressed you as far as strengths that we've shown
Well,
as a board? Who'd like to start
The
us
top
off?
three strengths would be those that were fully achieved by all 7 members. There were 3 questions that were 7 of us agreed fully achieved. And those were the question on that we honor our decisions and that we model mutual respect and that we value differences of opinion without letting personalities get in the way. So I thought that was very profound that we were 7, all 7 of us fully achieved, because when I answer these, I don't give fully achieved unless I really feel strongly, and I assume that you guys, so I was really happy to see that.
Very good. I'm sorry, what was the middle one?
Models mutual respect.
Thank you. Did anyone have different top threes?
I looked through all of them, and then if there was a theme that kept popping up as high, so similar
the
to what you
same,
just said,
yeah.
I put down that it seemed as though from the responses that we all felt safe to share our opinions because we're respectful, and I think all of us consider ourselves part of a team. The second one is that we're well prepared, that we take our job seriously. And then I also had that it seemed like we have high integrity in the work that we do. So those were, like, I took them all and I boiled them into what I thought the top three were.
Very nice.
I had the same, was our strength. I went and I looked at the numbers on here, our average response, and I just pulled those. I wanted to use this instead of my own personal opinion because I wanted to look at it from a board perspective, not just my perspective. And I was very happy with the results of the board's performance, because if we can get a 7 on this, and we can do all 7 of us on one page, if we can respect each other, work together, we're growing together, we can learn together, the rest of this stuff will follow. I would hate to be here and have to back up. So I'm so glad that we're doing the work. We're getting training, we're starting our workshops, we're moving in the right direction to make the district better and to have that cohesiveness. So I think everything else will follow if we're strong, and we have, it wasn't on here, but I think it was important too that our relationship and the strength that we have with our schools and our administration team and with Dr. Cartwright is all getting stronger, getting better, and I think it's just going to catapult us into as if we keep growing together and listening.
Catapult, that's a good word. I like that. Any others that you wanted to highlight?
Well, when I was looking at it, was this top 3. That's kind of all one, but some of the other strengths that I, had was just not about board members, but it was some of these other strengths in here were. I just have these in front of us. Maybe you have to come back to me because I can't find which page. I apologize.
No, I also looked at those that had the most fully achieved ratings, and I was impressed by that because, like Mrs. Carlin, I don't give those freely at the top because I always feel like you never are quite there. That's a continuing process, and so you have to keep working at it. But I did like the one on vision and top priority being student achievement. I think over the last year, for the most part, we have really talked a lot about student achievement. Not that we're ever finished, but that our emphasis is on student achievement, and I think that's why we're here. But I was impressed with the fact that we had high ratings for working with the superintendent in a spirit of mutual respect, open communication, trust. And I also like the notion that people were prepared for meetings. I think that's really important because it helps us move along when we are prepared, and we don't have to backtrack and bring people up to speed. So I would concur with the other ones that have been said. How about Mr. Evans?
I think you all spoke so eloquently on all those items that I also have all down. I would just be repeating everything that you all said, so.
Thank you. Mr. Peschel?
Sure. Not much new here, but I think when I started looking at this, I really was looking at those mostly achieved,
Okay.
partially achieved ones, because I think those are our areas of most growth.
Okay.
Not that we can't still strive to get those, those ones that we're getting 7, but I think the ones that are the most important are the most achieved and partially achieved areas where we can make the most difference in regards to the role that we play as a school board. And you hit on, one of those, student achievement. The other is, there's a couple more further down where there's several that are, mostly and partially where I think are the greatest spots for us to improve on. So I'd rather spend more time
Yeah, on
focusing on what we
improvement,
can
yeah.
improve,
We
what
will
we
do
can
that.
improve
Sure.
That's
improve
question
on,
number 2.
That's number
than,
2.
patting ourselves on the back that we're
Right.
all on the same page. And no offense to the.
No, that's question
Right.
number 2.
All right, I know, but I think that's kind of the direction where I want to go. So I want to go where we improve.
Where no board has gone before.
He's segueing into number 2.
Very
Let's
good.
start with him.
Well, let's start with Mr. Peschel then, on 3 areas to
On
discuss.
opportunities.
Or
Oh, I gotta
opportunities
look.
for growth.
So give me a second here.
All right.
There was,
While you're thinking, let me just throw in my 2 cents worth on a couple of things. I'm not the longest-serving board member, but I feel like over my tenure on the board, the people who have sat around this table over the last year have taken the board to a high level of professionalism. And I attribute much of that to the quality of the consultants we worked with in selecting a new superintendent, and the fact that when a board goes through a selection process like that, you spend a lot of time together in meetings, in closed session, which are allowable under the Wisconsin open meeting laws. And I think I'll speak for myself, I've really felt that we came together as a board. We developed some higher degree of trust and openness with one another. And I think another key element was the work that we did last fall with Ted Knightsky, where we spent, I don't know, it was about an hour and a half with Mr. Knightsky, and we talked about being above the line, below the line. And I think that has helped all of us put into perspective our conversations and our requests with administration, so that we are acting appropriately, staying in our lanes, and letting administration carry out the day-to-day operation of the school district, while we tend to look at things more from a 30,000-foot level, and deal more with policy issues and big picture. So I just want to commend all of us for working together to strive to improve as a board. And there's so much research out there that suggests that if we want to improve things at the classroom level, it starts at the board, it starts in the boardroom. So if we're functioning better as a board, this should assist the district in moving forward at the classroom level. So anyway, I gave you a little time to think there. Maybe that's a diversion, but.
so one of the areas that I think is really the most important thing for me is the one where it talks about principles of finance related to state, local, and federal budgeting.
I have that too.
I think
You nailed it.
we can always benefit from understanding. Well, I mean, all of us will probably sit up here and say that, on any given day, we understand some components of how this all comes about, but we don't have a fully grasp understanding of it, and we probably never will. And Sue likes to tell us that, it's even challenging for her for day to day.
Right.
But I think that's one area that we should strive to become better at, and to become more understanding of it. And I think there's other areas, depending on what committees and everything that you sit on, that you get a little bit more of that financial element
Yeah.
than you do the other things.
You do,
You
yeah,
know,
I agree.
And maybe it's, we spend a lot more time, like say, for instance, the education committee, putting money towards those, not money, so to say, but putting a dollar sign to that, that topic that we're talking about that day. So we understand that a little bit more. Or I brought it up with Sue that, I think it's WASB or CISA 6. One of them is creating a really thorough detail on budgeting for school boards to look at, and I can't remember who it is.
Not sure which one it is.
But I've kind of asked her to look over that resource and to determine whether that would be a good resource for us to have like a workshop on.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and part of that is that, we do a good job of being that team, about all of this, but we all still have our own personal interests, and understanding how that works in all of that is, I think, really is important to our cohesion of that. So there was another one that was really good about that, that was in between mostly and partially achieved of our community partnerships. Even though we probably deserve a 7, we all gave ourselves like a 6 and a 6 and a 1, or it was a 4 and a 3, and maybe the 4 was partially and the 3 was mostly. And I think that kind of, still talks about that those are one of our key areas that we really want to strive in, that we're really happy with it, but we're just not
Can do more.
not absolutely there yet. And I think that's one of the things. There was one other one, but I'll let someone else go.
Back to that. Mr.
Sure.
Evans, do you want to
Yeah,
take on that one?
and we've mentioned this in previous self-evaluations on the board, but legislative advocacy,
That's my number one.
discussing legislative issues. Which I still feel that for a district our size, we would have a lot of weight behind our comments and discussions on that. So I think that's one of the main things I think we should be looking at this year. And mentioning Ted Nutsky, we fill out a form with him too. Are we going to see those results at some point?
I believe Dr. Cartwright sends out after each meeting to us.
I owe you the
No,
last
not
one.
that form. You actually did a review
Of him?
of us. And you had the administrative staff do it too? Which I was
can
interested
follow-
in seeing.
One of us can follow up on that.
Because I remember saying he likes this form, but he thinks his is better. And then
Okay.
you had to fill it out.
Got it, I remember, yep.
I don't remember that.
We can follow
I
up
thought it
on
was just
that.
about him,
I got
about his
nothing.
performance. I don't remember.
Any others?
No.
Okay. As Mr. Peschel noted, each of us has our pet areas, so to speak, I guess. And for me, there are a couple of areas that fall together. One is equity. And for me, that extends into disaggregating the data into the subgroups, and the notion that when we talk about we want to meet the needs of all students, then it all means all. And that the data, to me, drives some of those decisions. And so that's an area where we could grow as a board, I believe, but we'll need administration help to do that. And we need to stay above the line on that.
Right.
They need to figure out the how, we can talk about the what. I'll leave it at that. There was another one that I thought was interesting, a lot of these were interesting to me. One was that we need to follow through, I think it was in one of the comments, that we need to follow through on literacy, performance, diversity, and improving revenues. That we talk about some things, but what's the next step? And then do we come back to the board with those? And one of those that we need to do that with is the Blue Ribbon Commission piece.
Yeah.
We need to get that to Ted Knightsky, but as Dr. Cartwright pointed out, we also need to link that to the governor's budget. We didn't have the governor's budget at the time that came out. And when we were in Madison last week, our lawmakers were very interested in knowing what we thought about some of those pieces in the governor's budget and addressing those. And similarly, at the CISA 6 legislative breakfast, which again, I would encourage us to attend, because you do sit down one-on-one, and even if you don't have our specific lawmaker, you're planting ideas with someone else. For example, one of the lawmakers had proposed as a school safety device, making money available to purchase devices that you put on the, as I understand this, Dr. Cartwright can correct me, on the floor to lock the doors so no one can come in. And I've been to a few ALPS trainings, and they talk about how if your door is locked and you've barricaded it, people who pose a threat are not likely to struggle to get through a door. They're going to move on. And so it was not thought that that was necessarily a good use of funds.
Right.
Well, the other lawmaker we shared this with thought, oh, well, yeah, that made sense. Why would you struggle to get through a door if another door was calling to you? Did I capture that somewhat closely? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Another one that surprised me somewhat, because I thought we were having success in this area, and it had to do with success. It was success in attracting and retaining high-quality employees.
That's one I have too.
I've always felt we have a high quality of staff who perform very well, who extend themselves in various directions, but that was seen as an area of growth.
Can I interrupt on that one?
Sure.
I wonder if we read it as maintaining them, keeping them.
Keeping them.
Because I know that
Yeah, that one looked weird.
we have great ones, we train them well, and then they move on. You know, so I wonder if people were interpreting that one as keeping the high-quality staff we do have. Because I don't want to speak for everybody on the board, but I believe that the conversations we've had together, that we absolutely think we have high-quality staff, and we do hire high-quality staff. I would assume that maybe that it was keeping them, because we lose a lot.
So maybe it was the retaining part more than the
retaining.
attracting
Yeah,
part.
that's how I answered
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
But, because that's why I
Well,
would
and
have,
we also don't attract them either. We do have great teachers, but we're missing out on a huge
Right.
proportion of them. They do not even consider us.
Right,
So.
yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Well, and it's probably true that our staff do not necessarily reflect the diversity of our student
Thank you.
population.
And like 90% of our teachers come from UWO.
I think it's a very high percentage. I don't know
So
what it is.
that statistically, we're not getting a wide net. We're not casting a wide net for people.
Okay. So those were my three. Mrs. Olmsted.
I am going to repeat fellow board members that the number one opportunities that I see that we can really do, I agree with Jim on this, is the legislative issues. We don't discuss them at board meetings enough. We don't invite them into our schools enough. We don't have conversations with them enough. I believe everybody would agree with me that Mr. Evans does it and Barb does, but I don't. I know I don't. So that is something that I think we could do a lot more of, especially because we're such a big district. I think we
Right.
could really, really impact things on those decisions
I agree.
and moving forward and helping the smaller districts, come with us. The other one I was working, which I agree with Bob, was working on the budget. There was workshops and working on the budget, understanding it. I understand it because I was the treasurer, so I got more in depth with that, and I've had those conversations with Sue, but I think in general, I know it, but I can't communicate it very well, so just I
Right.
think maybe having those. And then the one other opportunity was I agree with Barb. Those were my two things, I was surprised by attracting and retaining high quality, and then, that was because that was that other low one that I was kind of surprised at and I questioned. So, same three.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Garner.
I want to add that I think when I looked at some of those, I agree with those. And when I pull way back, I think culture is something that we probably aren't doing real well on. That's kind of how I took it. If we can't attract, we can't retain. Yeah, our culture, it's something that I would love to see us put some effort into. And that obviously starts at the leadership level. And so then that goes back to the superintendent evaluation. That we, as a board, if we're a well-functioning, high-performing team, and then we can hold our superintendent accountable for, whatever it is that we would like to see, then that can start to happen in administration, and then it trickles down into the schools. So that was an area that, as I looked at it from above, culture is a glaring, I think, a really, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Right.
Well stated. Any others?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Carlin?
So I agree with everything anyone said. I'm trying to think of something new to say. You guys have already covered it. I guess going to the legislative breakfasts, I've gone to a few now, and it is so eye-opening from two perspectives. One, what's happening in other districts, because I've learned a lot about other issues that other districts have. And two, just how some of these legislators think in ways that, you might not expect, and to get a grasp on what they're thinking and what issues are important to them. And then when we were in Madison last week, one thing we were talking about is that we need less restrictions on our money and how we spend money. Like, don't tell us how we can spend our money. Give us freedom to spend our money the way we need to spend our money, and then give us more stability in our budget so that Sue isn't scrambling every, and so then educating our community on that, because I think that there's a lot of misperceptions regarding our budget and how we meet our financial needs. So there's some work that we can do with that as well. So yeah, I agree with everything everyone said.
Okay, then. Moving on to question number 3. What should we focus on? Where do we go from here? Mrs. Olmsted, would you like to
Sure,
start us?
I sure will. I think I have 4. Obviously, I think we need to focus on, this is very broad. So we need to focus on, and I'm very, very excited about our workshops with the school board workshop. That's a long time coming. I am so excited to get there, to be able to keep growing. And then we also need to focus on the strategic plan this year that's coming forward. And then my other 2, which are more of, these 2 are like already there, already in the plan. We got to work on them. We got to focus on them. But my focus, stepping back as a school board member, is mental health and the achievement gap. Mental health is my number 1. That's a big one for me. So I think we really need to keep working with, we're making great movement. We had that great discussion tonight with Common Council. I'm excited to hear back from Dr. Cartwright and Mr. Roloff about what, with the county, and just keep moving that forward. And because it's affecting, I loved how it was interpreted tonight, or said tonight, that it affects everyone. It doesn't have to be poverty. It doesn't have to be divorced parents. It doesn't have to be, it could be anybody. It could be the most healthy child just in a stressful situation. There's just so much to it. It's so dynamic that I think just helping the community and working as a bigger picture, and it's just not the schools, those are what I would like to focus on.
Excellent.
What were they again?
The workshop that we're doing.
Okay.
Strategic plan, and then mental health, and then the achievement gap,
Sure.
with emphasis on the literacy, which is something we're always working on. So. But we're making big progress in that too, so not
Great.
big. We are making progress.
Mrs. Garner?
I was wondering, this just popped up as we were talking, I wonder if we would like to entertain an idea. I don't want to add more committees willy-nilly, but I wonder if we would like to add a legislative committee to the school board. It's something that keeps popping up year after year, and I'm wondering if we devoted a committee to it, which is how the education committee was formed, we never had one, which was ironic, right? So it's just something that we might want to think about, throwing that out on the table. Yeah, mental health for me is a big initiative, and I wonder if culture could play into that, where we could do the two birds, one stone kind of a thing. And then, well, I would love to see us innovate more than we do and have little pockets of like pilot testing and little pockets of innovation and little trials and things that we're doing. We have access to 10,000 students, and could we try some different things in little places? That's how I see innovation. Can we try some things and see what works, see what we learn? I would love to see more of it. Not that we don't do it, but boy, I'm a big, that's my thing, so.
Right.
It's not right for everybody.
No, that's fine, and there were some really meaningful comments made on some of those sections that I think address
Yeah.
innovation and thinking outside the box
Right.
Yeah.
and benchmarking nationally, internationally, and so on.
And it came up when we were talking about those snow days. Why
Are we
are
not
our
more
kids
virtual? Yeah.
not using their computer? Like,
Right.
what are we doing? So that to me was
You could still have
like
class, they all had their
such an aha.
Chromebooks. You
Yeah.
could still go to school.
Yep.
Sure. This is
Totally
Carmen.
possible.
My number one, no surprise, is facilities. I think that this study
Oh,
that we've
yes.
done is eye-opening, and I do not think we should continue to pour millions of dollars into these dying schools. I do not think that's a good investment. I think that we need to come up with a 20-year plan for our schools and start making some really tough choices. I know you guys have heard me say that before. Also, poverty is my number two, 241 students. Where are they? How can we help them? And then mental health is my third issue. And I would add strategic plan, because,
I kind of did the no-brainer one.
Right,
ones that
yeah,
we have to do.
right.
And the, facilities kind of flows into that strategic
Mhm.
plan for me, so I don't know, so, yeah.
right, so.
It's all the same, yeah. good.
All right, very good. Mr.
But-
Burchell.
Sure.
Thank you for pointing it out specifically.
Thank you for pointing it out.
I think mine is kind of a little bit of everything that you guys are kind of saying here. So I believe that the best thing that we can do, that we should be focusing on, is creating the most forward-thinking strategic plan for our district.
That wraps up everything.
And when that comes to us, really talk about that and have a real conversation about the direction of what that says. Because I'm kind of in your boat, where I feel that, I really feel that we need to make a tough decision on the direction of our schools down the line. And it's not just like, we need to potentially create new buildings, we're
plan.
creating an academic plan that involves enhancements in our areas where our kids learn.
Right.
That's really important. That's become really important to me in the last 2 years of just seeing everything, seeing schools that I went to not have changed. And, that's really important. Our kids are missing out.
They are, big time.
And our strategic plan needs to address that our kids are missing out, and that we need to do what we need to
better.
do to make it better so that they don't miss out. So I think creating the most forward-thinking strategic plan should be our main goal, because that's what's coming to us. That's what's coming to
That
us in
wraps
the
up
near future
everything.
is a strategic plan. And that's one of our best tools
Yes.
to creating and maintaining the
Change.
future of our mission. So, the second is, it's students. So, we've spent a lot of time talking about poverty, talking about mental health and doing all of that stuff. And I think at the forefront of that, it's students. And where does this all interconnect? Where, I think we've kind of come to this point where we really can't ignore that our students are in some really tough positions. And that we're in a position to make their future better. And so, thinking outside of the box, being innovative, not just in educational, academic opportunities, but like in addressing what are those needs that exist through their home situations, that how can we address, where can we work collaboratively with agencies in doing that. I'm in the housing world, and so when you talk about, creating a housing plan collaboratively, building homes and creating wraparound services, case management, that's all great stuff to me. And so the idea, and that's forward thinking, that's a step. Where can we help? Where can we make it easier? And I think part of our job is to not just think about what takes place in the classroom, but what also, what can we do to make it easier for kids to get to school? What can we do to make it easier for them to learn? And if communities are doing stuff like buying up land and building homes, and making it easier for kids to have that solid base, I think we should look into that.
Sure.
I think that should be part of our collaborative plan in the communities to look for solutions like that. So I think that's really good. And then the second one is I think that we need to be budget hawks to some extent. I need to do a better job of it. I'm the treasurer, and I feel that I know like a minimal amount of what I should know. And I think, we've sat here and talked about how we need money for this, and how we want the legislature to do this and that. And, but I think it goes right in line with what our legislative plan, that, talking about spending more time, creating that legislative committee that fits right into that. Because so much of our legislative adventures that we want to succeed are really tied to the money that comes to our district.
Yes.
And so the better job that we can do, that we can understand our budget and to be able to communicate it out to the public, I think is really, really important. My final thing is that I think also, communicating, we've done, and I don't want to say this, I gotta say this the right way, because our communications director is awesome. She's awesome. She does a great job. She's right there. Katie is right there. Vicki, you've done a great job guiding and moving forward outward communication of what our successes are, where we need to grow, all of that stuff. But we need to do that in a way that incorporates getting the public to come to us and to want to be part of that, not just through like a strategic planning process, but like through open meetings, open conversations. I think the more we can involve the public in how we come to what we do, finding the avenues. And I know that they're not knocking on our doors. When we have our committee meetings, they're not there. But one of our goals is how do we get them there?
Right.
How do we get them to want to be involved in the decisions and shaping that? And that's the biggest difference, when, the city council has all those committees that are appointed by, there's community members who represent areas of our community there. Our committee structure isn't that way, but could it be that way?
Sure.
And that's kind of, those are the areas that after, being on here for a couple of years, that those are the areas that I really think that we could really strive in. We're told that, people want to be involved with what we do. And I know that our committee stuff isn't the most exciting stuff. But the reality is that we should figure out ways to make it exciting for parents, business leaders, and stuff to kind of want to be involved in helping shape that vision, other than every 5-10 years when we ask them to,
We make them mad.
Yeah.
That's when they show up, is when they're mad.
So, and we don't want that. 'Cause
Right.
that's not positive,
No.
We want
right?
to harness the
We want to
positivity.
create positive ways of involving our community into the directions that we take. So, how about that?
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Mr. Evans?
I think course additions and deletions is must-see TV.
Oh.
That is the best. For some reason, I interpreted this question to relate back to the survey that we filled out.
Okay.
So
Sure.
all the people that are thinking outside the box, for some reason I wasn't. that
The
I think,
artist
well,
is the one thinking inside the
Yeah,
box.
I was saying that, that's like the first time I've ever done that, but those are all excellent suggestions. So what I mentioned, going back to the survey, I put down legislative advocacy. And then the next to it is going to be like Allison's ideas. I think the culture, I think you said that, it was an excellent statement. And I think we should discuss really forming a legislative action committee or legislative committee.
Awesome.
I think those are two excellent suggestions.
Okay, I think I know somebody who could set that up.
Very good. All right. I think a key element for us is going to be the strategic plan. And I'm hesitant to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, until we see what that strategic plan is.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
whatever we're going to focus on needs to align with that
Yes,
strategic plan.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm really anxious to see the results of that, so that we can
Right.
start digesting that, defining what the outcomes are that we're looking for, and then having these other pieces fit. Within that strategic plan, I'm looking forward to that being somewhat different in terms of more of a focus on results, not to what extent did we implement something. It's been more of a checkoff mentality, and maybe that's what we needed 6 years ago, but I think we're beyond that now. I think we need to look at results. And I like the idea of focusing on students, and for me, that takes into account the challenges they face, the mental health, certainly, the poverty, the behaviors. We heard tonight that our 4K students, some of them need assistance in how to behave. And it also brings into play the achievement gap. I think about the legislative piece, and I think about former board president Steve Dito and how he talked about wanting us to move more in that direction. And I think readiness is a concept that applies to 5-year-olds coming into kindergarten, but it also applies to boards.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we've matured to a point now
I
where
agree.
we're ready to do that. So the legislative advocacy, I think, is really important, the strategic plan, and then the students. And I'm going to expand that out to include facilities, because we know we have had 2 major workshops, one in the fall and then one this spring. Actually, it was still winter because it's only spring now, on facilities. But we also know from the facilities report that didn't begin to address some of the learning issues, updating labs, just looking at the adequacy of so many of our facilities.
Right.
In terms of meeting the needs of students. I look at the West Gym, for example, and how small that is relative to the number of students that serves and the way it serves students. So those would be the big ones for me moving forward. Dr. Cartwright, I overlooked you a little bit, but I do welcome your wisdom and your comments on this conversation. Since it was a board self-evaluation, I thought we should hear from the board first, but I definitely want to hear from you as well.
I concur with a lot from what each of you are saying, and I think it's going to be extremely important as we go forward in developing our strategic plan. Your strategic plan will help really guide us as to what are the goals that we want to set for the district, what are the things that we say are the priorities, and it will give us focus.
Right.
I want to be very, very candid on that. Having focus is extremely important because the more you pull away from those areas that you identify as your priorities, the more you are eroding from those priorities that you have identified. So even if something flashy comes up, it's so easy to go, oh, this is so new, and to really kind of have to temper yourself to say, no, this is what we said was a goal. And if we need to adjust the goal, then we go back and we have that conversation to adjust the goal. And there's nothing wrong with that. I honestly want to, ideally go forward with that. I still will be encouraging the board to do a 5-year strategic plan with those measurable outcomes that you were referencing, Dr. Herzog. But within that 5-year plan, we have year by year, how are we going to accomplish that? And that's where you have that flexibility in order to do that. So I absolutely agree. The strategic plan is definitely one area that needs to be a high priority of this board for this upcoming year, because that is the work. That is the what.
That's our base.
Right?
Yeah.
We're,
Gives us focus.
my team and myself will be working on the how.
Right, got
Um,
it.
So that's really, really important. The second one that you had mentioned related to legislative advocacy, I'm hoping that you're starting to feel a little bit more empowered here over the past few months as to at least the type of information that you're receiving from me, and trying to keep you in the know as to where some things that are happening. The legislative breakfast, candidly, Ms. Carlin was sharing about, is a prime opportunity. And what you also need to recognize is that I listen to you to have the discussions as a board and say, these are the things that we want to go forward with. And that's important because I echo your message in some of the other meetings that occur. So, for example, when Ted Neinsky's going, okay, so where do we want to go? How do we platform this? I listen carefully, and I carry your message forward. But you are correct. I mean, we are the 11th largest district in the state. That's not something, that's not a small number, especially when there's, over 450? Yeah, thereabouts. Over 400. So the point being is that you do have a voice. We have a very large voice. We need to have a focused voice that brings forward our goals from our strategic plan. But at the same time, it has to be fluid enough to be highly responsive to the needs of things that are occurring on an immediate basis. Because though the legislation, a lot of times things take a long time, there are those things that go quick.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very nimble and be highly attuned to those things in order
And
to be
what's
responsive
happening.
to them. So I would echo, the legislative committee, I think, is something that I would see value in for you as a board. Because
Talking
that would
points.
provide for us, again, to provide for the nimbleness and also where I may need direction. As the wishes of a board, and having a subcommittee that acts as that voice will provide for that when needed. But also in leading up some of the larger conversations and making sure that people are aware and in tuned. Though I will continue to keep all of you updated. I think it's a good conversation. And to Mr. Peschel's point, where bringing people in, that's a wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
And a great area to bring people in order to really leverage our resources appropriately. And resources being human capital resources, as you might say, in our community. Growing the board, I think that is something that is essential. We're only as good as our ability to grow, right? And it's extremely important. Even with our executive team, to collaboratively, we're constantly growing together, and we're learning about new things across the district. We're constantly working on going forward, as I've mentioned to you before, with our work with the equity work. This is something that's district-wide, and we're having a plan on how we're rolling this out across over a period of time in order to have sustainable growth. Right? And as a board, having those development sessions and having those conversations will help you because it helps you see some of those larger pictures. It helps you with understanding budget. It helps you with understanding how do we leverage our resources for legislative actions, those kind of things. So, and it also helps you with, okay, well, where is that line sometimes? Because it can get fuzzy sometimes. And that's very normal. But again, it's just growing and growing together, I think is important. And then lastly, the facilities. Though I would assume, and assume's not a good word, though I would predict that more than likely the board is, and I'm speaking out of turn right now, and I know that, but I'm speaking based off of what I'm hearing tonight, so I'll make that very clear. I do see that there is a high potential that one of the goals in our strategic plan will be around facilities. So I would concur with that, and if it didn't, I would still say we still have to have attention to our facilities because so many of them are in such need. And again, I want to make this abundantly clear, our maintenance staff and our custodial staff have done amazing work
Absolutely.
in
It's no reflection on
maintaining
them. Yeah.
these very old facilities. And so I want to make that abundantly
Yeah.
clear because there's a misconception out there that, oh, y'all didn't
We're
keep up with
just
stuff.
letting them rot.
That had nothing to do, it has
no,
nothing
no,
to do
no.
with that. It's just the facility, the old, you know, when you have,
Man can only do so much with 100-year-old buildings.
well, much older than that.
Yeah.
And some even older
but
too.
And
Civil
so
War,
I just want to make that
1800s.
point very quickly. But again, I'm seeing those, from what I'm hearing you all speaking, you know, your strategic plan gives you the focus to the students, which was the point. The legislative advocacy gets to what all of you were talking about. The growing of the board helps you understand the budget, those kind of things. And then the facilities in order to address some very critical issues that the district is facing at this point.
Very, very well said.
Very
Dr.
well
Cartwright.
said.
Very well
Focus.
said.
We need focus.
I see this as a big picture, what we've done tonight, as part of a big picture, tying into the strategic plan, tying into our work with Cheryl Stinsky, who would be our facilitator, and I do have dates for that, by the way. We finally were able to agree on dates. It was a miracle. Anyway, those are April 22nd. That is our board reorganization night. And generally, that process takes about 30 minutes, and so Cheryl would be available to
have that,
begin
yeah.
work with us at about 6:30 that evening, and she had asked for 2 3-hour sessions, so bring your coffee or your water, Joe, so you're ready to go. On April 25th, she can come 6:30, 7. We did have a request to start that meeting at 7 o'clock by one board
She wants
member.
3 hours, though?
And she wants about 3 hours, so that would get us out about 10 o'clock that night.
Okay, it's all right.
So
you
if
serious?
those dates are
Ew.
acceptable, I will confirm those with Cheryl.
Way past my bedtime.
I know.
I turn into a pumpkin at some point.
Okay.
I'll bring, lots of M&Ms.
So I
Okay,
see
I'll stay-
that.
For M&Ms, I'll stay till 10.
Oh, and we'll bring M&Ms.
I'll bring the M&Ms.
Perfect, Bob. Thank you. So I think that if we look at the strategic plan, the work with Cheryl, the work we did with Ted, and then the work we did tonight, I see that all coming together. But I don't think we're prepared to pull it together totally tonight. But I do think, for example, on the April 22nd board meeting, the reorganization meeting, we could establish a legislative committee.
Yes,
Well,
we
that's
can.
what I
That
have,
night.
Perfect
yeah.
time.
We can?
Sure.
Because I was going to ask that for a future item,
We
like
can
how
get
do we
rid
do
of
that?
committees, we can add committees, we can do all sorts of stuff.
Really?
Sure.
It's that easy?
It's, well, it has been.
Change policy, that's
We
all.
gotta,
Okay.
It's not in concrete.
right.
Yes, we could
We
do
Then
used
that.
to
I-
have like 10 committees. It
I
was
say we
insane.
put that on that
We got
night
rid of
with
all of them.
committees.
Sure.
Start it over.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else anyone wants to add or question
No.
about our self-evaluation this evening?
This was, I might add, this probably is, I think, the nicest, best, most comfortable self-evaluation we've done.
Yes, thank you.
This was
good.
amazing.
I like
I
this one.
loved this one.
This was really good.
It just after years of like 7 different ones to 3
Those were
different
pilot
ones.
tests.
Right.
Right, this
We
is
had
great.
to learn.
I like this one.
I did too.
This one was the best.
And then-
People are so articulate. Oh, I love it. Okay. All right. So if there aren't any parting comments on this at this time, we'll look forward to the minutes and then building on this with the work of the strategic plan and our work with Cheryl Stinsky on the nights of April 22nd and 25th.
Okay.
Okay, then. Any final thoughts, Dr. Cartwright?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the consent resolution agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. Is there anyone who wishes to pull any of the items?
No.
Okay, then. Number 1, the board will consider approval of 1, minutes of February 27th, 2019, regular board meeting. Number 2, minutes of February 27th, 2019, executive session, regular board meeting. Number 3, minutes of the March 6th, 2019, regular board meeting. Number 4, minutes of the March 6th, 2019, executive session, regular board meeting. Number 5, bills payable. Number 6, personnel. A, appointments, temporary appointments, resignations, and salaries. Number 7, adoption of new social studies standards. Number 8, final notice of non-renewals, temporary contracts. Number 9, lease agreement between the OASD and the Winnebago County for use of Winnebago County Community Park softball diamonds. Number 10, disallowance of liability claim. Number 11, Number 11, disallowance of liability claim. And number 12, website vendor selection.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Eliason. Evans.
Aye.
Evans, aye. Garner.
Aye.
Garner, aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Herzog, aye. Olmsted.
Aye.
Olmsted, aye. Peschel.
Aye.
Peschel, aye. Carlin.
Aye.
Carlin, aye. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Are there any individually considered resolutions for tonight? Are there any requests for future agenda items? Are there any announcements?
I'd like to make one.
Okay.
I was going to say about the SOAR event and how great that was, but Steph already did that.
Sorry.
No, thank you. I wanted to, the main reason for making this announcement is I really, really, really wanted to tell the kids who came how proud I was of them. So Stephanie and I had a chance to go last Friday night and with Matt to the speaker, Michael Venny. And NAMI had put it on with Matt, and it was a great event. And it was pretty good attended. It was wonderful. I have so many notes, and I didn't want to look like I was like on my phone, but I was taking notes of stuff he was saying. It was just a really, really great event. And there were students there with their parents, and these students actually got up and asked questions. Kids, high school kids.
Awesome.
And it was, I couldn't, like, my heart just swelled that there was a student there, a girl, I would assume she's a student, and she was asking questions about perception and about, it was just to see the kids and their parents being supportive there and listening and getting up and asking. There was really great questions. It was just a really good night. He did a great job. So I wanted to thank you so much, Matt. That was a great opportunity for us. I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to go. But my main thing was I want to congratulate those students for standing up and asking those questions. Like, it was awesome.
I know. Oh, you're going to make me cry.
So I have a follow-up. Is there any way that can be posted to YouTube and be shared further?
I don't think that would be appropriate, though, either, because these students
Sure.
stood up
Yeah.
in front
Yeah.
of just
That's
those
fine.
people there and asked questions. I don't know that they would want that.
No, that's
Yeah.
good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're good.
Read Kelly's
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got lots of notes. Yeah, I do.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just wanted to put out those thank yous and that those students standing up and those parents being supportive was heard.
Sure.
Very good. Any other announcements?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So, it's kind of a biased announcement, but it's a very cool announcement. So, I have a 5th grader that goes to Webster Stanley, and he's had the ability to be on the booster team, the booster 5th grade team. And so, I think it's really important to acknowledge that several of our 5th grade boys who would eventually be fed into the Oshkosh North basketball program took the state tournament last weekend. So they've only lost a couple games as a team in the last couple of years, and so they're really tight-knit team with lots of room to grow in, which leads me into the next statement. The staff and the coaches that we have that are working with our kids, not just at North, but we got to see West as well. They're phenomenal. And this isn't, a program where kids just show up in high school and they can play basketball, or any sport.
Yeah.
Many of our sports have these booster programs where we're working with them, showing them the skills, and by the time they get to high school, they're, some of them are college ready, when they get to, that higher level of high school sports. But it's not just done, it's several years of working with these kids and these coaches being there and being present to shaping them, not just as athletes, but as students as well. And I don't want to say student athlete because that term changes as they get older, and it's not necessarily the best term sometimes. But as students growing into understanding the balance of a sport, learning a sport, playing a sport effectively, and ultimately as a team, and then being able to do that. So I really got a unique opportunity to be a school board member, but also being a parent and seeing our kids go to different communities over the last couple of years, represent themselves really well, our coaches representing themselves really well. And so it's, I think it's really important. They weren't at a school-based program, but those were our students that were doing that, and those were our coaches, and some of those are our teachers, that are shaping our kids for the future. So
I was just going to ask, what is a booster program?
Booster program is where, you have like funders who are willing to help share their money to shape like a sports program. And in this case, basketball can start, they have camps that can start all the way from 3rd grade up. And so they help fund and make those programs happen outside of school district money. So it's individual, private, stuff, but it's our students, for the most part, it's our students using that. So, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else want to know?
I just had a really quick one. I know I already shared with Barb and Vicki. A council member had suggested that we perhaps think about putting together a field trip to our schools to show city council members some of our schools and take a little tour, have lunch there, get them in our schools. She thought that might be a good idea, so I had proposed that to Barb. and She's working on it.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Put that on an agenda.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I just want to acknowledge that we had a special meeting, which was properly noticed for 5 o'clock tonight, and we were joined by the city council. And so I want to give a thanks to the city council members who were able to attend, along with city manager Mark Roloff and assistant city manager John Fitzpatrick. I find those meetings to be very beneficial to get another perspective on aspects that impact both the school district and the community. And tonight we had talked about childhood poverty as well as mental health issues. I also want to note that we will have students in school Thursday of this week, regular day, Friday, regular day, and at the end of Friday, spring break begins. So we will not be having students attending classes next week. But I know we do have many students who will be representing the district on various school-sponsored trips, and many families who will be leaving the district for various reasons. And so I would just like to extend a wish for safe travel and for rewarding experiences to everyone who's going on a trip. And for those of us who are staying in Oshkosh, I hope
It's going to be nice.
exciting things to do, so that when school resumes, which I believe is April 1st, and I've noted that there are a number of high school-related athletic activities which commence on April 2nd, although I know there are some other ones that will take place next week. I'm hoping that we will have students returning for those athletic contests to fields and diamonds and tracks that are free of snow and ice, so that our athletic directors don't have to reschedule those events, because I know how significant that is. So anyway, I wish those who are traveling, may they enjoy safe travels and rewarding experiences. and that everyone enjoys a relaxing spring break. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session. Number 1, considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren C of the Wisconsin statutes, A, preliminary notice of non-renewals for regular contracts, and 2, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, A, property use.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Evans?
Aye.
Evans, I. Garner?
Aye.
Garner, I. Herzog?
Aye.
Herzog, I. Olmsted?
Aye.
Olmsted, I. Peschel?
Aye.
Peschel, I. Carlin?
Aye.
Carlin, I. Eliason? Motion carried.
Thank you very much. With that, the meeting is adjourned.